Greetings and peace. I hope you and yours are doing well today, wherever you might be watching this from. I'm trying something new here with the still image and having a presentation over it. So with this one, I wanted to do a short talk on the aspect of the futuristic version of Freemasonry, or why, in particularly the U.S., why Freemasonry will have to inevitably adapt to its virtual future. So I've experienced Freemasonry in more than one country and jurisdiction, and I've seen the highs and lows of it. I've seen it, I left it, I came back to it, knowing my purpose, who I am, and what I stand for, and my talents and the gifts that I have to offer to the world in terms of the light that I have been bestowing not only upon myself. This is a educational process for me as well, in terms of all the stuff that I did on this channel for the last 2.5 years. So as a disclaimer before I get into any topic, is I represent myself only as a free man under free speech, and I represent no Masonic authority or jurisdiction or no organization. I only represent myself and my views. So that out of the way, I see right now in this time of great change that everything is changing, whether it's the education system, the workplace, personal relationships. You can feel something in the air has changed. I recently traveled to England. I was there. I felt even something was changed over there last time I was there in 2019. It felt like a different world to me. In my local area, I go to the city. Something feels empty. Something is not connected anymore in terms of the human interaction. Then I look at the way the education system is now, the workplaces are now. Everything is kind of shifting to a virtual environment, which has its ups and it also has its downs in terms of the lack of personal face-to-face human interaction. So right now in this time of great change, groups like Freemasonry are very prevalent and needed, especially in America right now, where all this chaos is going on, high crime rate, high inflation, people just don't want to commit to each other no more, no relations, and it's a time of hopelessness, especially for my generation. And I say the same thing, I always say the same thing, that the aspect of envying the time of my parents and grandparents, because people were simpler, people were nicer, things were less complicated. Of course, they didn't have the technology, but people were, I guess, more connected with each other in many ways. Now we do have the advantage of technology, which even has helped me share a lot of my knowledge out there for the people, and what I've been able to learn from others with the podcast that I've been doing. So it has its advantages, and right now we're in a prevalent time where you need some kind of a hobby to keep you grounded, some kind of a spiritual practice, some kind of a skill that can hone you and also serve you as a way you can make a living off of it. Is if there's a skill or a craft that you have that can serve you in that regard. Proper companionship, being with the right people, having the right friends, that could make a major difference in your life, a major difference in this time of chaos, to help make you feel grounded, and in the aspect that we're all walking each other home, and we owe this love and light to one another. That said, Freemasonry in America, it particularly, is very divided at the moment. I mean, not only you have like the mainstream Grand Lodges, then you have the Prince Hall Grand Lodges. Both have their own respective issues that I always hear members who send me emails or who I talk to. So everyone kind of has their own, I guess, dilemmas and concerns that they raise, without getting into any of that. But I've had a lot of people reach out to me, especially these last 6 months. I can't even tell you how many people emailed me saying that they're not dealing with the physical aspect of it anymore because they're not learning anything. It's just a social club, and they think that, okay, I'm putting on a suit, leave my family for a few hours of the day, I'm paying to be here, and then I come here and these people are just breaking my balls, and they're not talking nice to me, and they're talking down on me, I'm not learning anything, and it's all a boring social club meeting. So a lot of them, as time goes on, the attendance get less and less and less, and it's only like maybe 5 or 6 or 7, 8 people that might show up at a lodge meeting probably the bare minimum to keep it going. And it's usually the people from the older generations. Very, very few you will find somebody from a younger generation there. And it all depends on the lodge, because I mean, it's just like picking the proper mosque or church. You have to find a lodge that is welcoming for you. So basically, when you do make that choice, you have to make sure, when you're whatever path that you're on, you pick the right lodge, pick the right mosque, pick the right Sufi order, pick the right church, etc. I mean, it applies universally to all of it. So what happens is you have to pick the right place, but majority right now are in that same issue right now from the U.S. perspective, because I mean, I've experienced Masonry in other places, and it's thriving in other countries because they listen to their members and they give them what they want. And it's not that aspect of arrogance and disrespect that you might find here in the U.S. So that's my personal opinion, and my disclaimer was there at the beginning of the video. So with that said, you have these people that take the effort to get suited and booted, leave their families for hours, and come back with nothing. Some probably come back with a negative experience. I've seen it happen where somebody could say something to you, and I mean, what can you really do about it at the end, right? People just stop showing up. So what has happened, to the point that I'm getting to with this conversation, is right now, ever since COVID happened in March of 2020, there's been a boom in like online Masonic education from brothers all over the world. Everyone's like writing their own books, making their channels, setting up their podcast, and I'm happy about that because I always encouraged that since day one, since I've been doing my thing since 2019, even before the pandemic hit. So that's what my original message was, that if you don't see something that's happening in terms of education and the things that you want to see, you yourself as a Mason are a builder, so you make it yourself. Like with myself, with my channel, for those that have been following me, look at all of the topics and discussions that I talk about, from Freemasonry to talking to these different people, just so much, just all the variety. No other basically platform would talk about the things that I want to talk about, because I have my Eastern perspective, and some would have their own biases where they just want to cover their stuff, and I cover everything, and I give everyone a chance to state their opinion as well by interviewing these different people, because that's what it means to have an open and free society, that you talk about everything and anything and let the person make up their mind about it. That's the beauty of education and awareness, and being the builder of yourself from your rough ashlar into a smooth ashlar. So that way you're leaving something better behind. So in the future, however long I'm meant to be on this earth for, that's between me and God Almighty. But after that, my work is always there on the internet. Whoever wants to look me up and see what message I left for humanity, it's always going to be there. So that's one of the advantages of the internet. So as the pandemic hit in 2020, so many Masonic podcasts and channels started popping out of nowhere. And over time, people were just like, you know what? This is serving my purpose. This is helping me learn the moral lessons that I needed. A lot of them have like these Zoom platforms where you can interact and have your voice be heard and learn from others and talk with others, converse with them, comment, share, and build friendships and bonds, even if it's on a virtual level. And a lot of it are still doing that today. They're like, you know what? I could just do this at home, just like staying at home, playing video games, or watching Netflix, or reading a book from my tablet instead of going to the library to get a book. It's the same form of advancements that has improvised Freemasonry in many ways as well. And you see some of the Masonic organizations adapted to some of their reunions in a virtual way. So a lot of them adapted and improvised to not lose the participation of the members on a virtual manner. So a lot of them did improvise and do that. So as time goes on, people are just going to be like, okay, I can stay at home. I don't have to get suited and booted and leave my family. I can be in an environment where it's not going to be any social club stuff. I'm going to be learning esoteric and spiritual knowledge, which is what I signed up for. And myself being from the young generation, I can't speak for all, but Majority of the young generation are hungry for esoteric, spiritual, and occult knowledge. So they want to be with like-minded folks. And right now in the U.S., majority of the Masonic gatherings are filled with older folks. So you could go to any of the clubs or appendant bodies or organizations. Majority are from the older generations. You're not going to find anybody younger. So once the young person, let's say they join and they see all that, then they don't bother showing up because they don't have anybody they can relate to. That's just a general human fact, not just to Freemasonry, but that can be true for any organization. So, and I've seen that not just in Freemasonry, but many Sufi orders, because I follow Sufism as well. They also have adapted and improvised with the virtual stuff. So now you can do everything right from home. So that's how time is going to go. As time goes on, a lot of these organizations will have to start improvising and adapting and seeing that 30 years from now, these people at the top who have their own cliques, these older guys that refuse to welcome any change, they want to keep everything amongst themselves and just kind of do their own thing. I mean, time does get the best of you, right? None of us are going to be alive forever. So it's my generation, 10 to 20, 25 years from now, who are going to be in their position and will be the leaders of tomorrow. So the way that I see it, if they refuse to do any change, then time will offer that change inevitably, because time does answer everything in many ways. So it's going to be more virtual. It's going to be compartmentalized between physical and virtual. And that's just how it's going to be. Where let's say you can meet like a few times a year instead of meeting 9 months a year, several times a month, which can take a toll on you in many ways, being away from your family for that much. So I think the virtual will have its own benefits, and all the knowledge is out there for free. So this also serves as a benefit against the naysayers and the conspiracy people who said that the Freemasons are hoarding all the knowledge and they're not sharing anything with everybody. It's all out there. My channel, these other channels, any subject or discussion or philosophy or religion, you could just type that and it'll be right there. Just like how I did with all of these different faiths and philosophies, comparing it to Masonic teachings, to show the oneness of it all, that no matter what path you follow, it's all teaching you the same exact thing. Be a good moral human being, be good to your family, be good to your loved ones, and that's it. That's the life. Who knows if tomorrow is promised to any of us? It doesn't matter if you have a 33 or a PM next to your name. I've talked to some of them. Some of them don't even know anything in terms of esoteric and occult knowledge. So the younger people don't care for any of that stuff. They want people that they can learn from and ask them, how did you get to this point in your life? How can I learn from it, and how can it benefit me? Because look at the world that we're facing right now. Global warming, the world is falling apart with war, famine, chaos, water shortages everywhere, high crime rate. So much is going on in this world. You name it, it's there. People are not getting married anymore. People don't want to commit anymore. You have a traumatized society. They don't want to deal with anybody. So we're dealing with a much, much more complex world than the older generation has. So all organizations, including Freemasonry, especially in America, have to improvise to be able to sustain its futures. They have to. It's just the way that it's going to be. Just like how we see with the education system. I've seen those for younger ones who have the option now to basically either they can go to school physically, or let's say that they don't feel safe at school because of all the craziness that's going on. A lot of them will get options now that you can just do everything virtually from home and you still get credit for being at school. Because look, even the education system is improvising, because they know sometimes that's not natural for a child to get up at that early in the morning and go through this jailhouse routine, and then ringing the bells and standing in line for lunch like an inmate. So they improvised, and many I know that are thriving by mixing and matching. Those that feel comfortable in person at school, they do that. Those that have that assertiveness to not be able to take any nonsense from anybody, they do that. Those that have their own boundaries or they want to have their own comfort, they can do it from home. But The improvisation is there. That's what I'm saying. The education system has improvised. And over time, it will become routine. Right now, it's a sudden shock as the pandemic hit in 2020. And same thing with the Masonic education system. Look, out of nowhere, the pandemic had to happen. Things happen for a reason. And all this stuff that's out there now, all of these different channels, podcasts, books, so much knowledge is out there now. From the comfort of your home, it's all there at your fingertips. And you can learn it, apply it to your life, apply the lessons to your life. That's what Freemasonry is, right? So that's what I'm saying, is that the Lodge Freemasonry is very far away from the esoteric Freemasonry. What it means to be that good man who's connected to God, connected to himself, his family, not talking down on others, not going to lodge just to crack jokes and break balls, because that's not what Freemasonry is. And that's what drives many of the people away. So as time goes on, and the people in charge are getting older and older, and some of them are dying off too, the younger generation, when they take over, it's going to be that improvised future where it's going to be electronic, virtual, and accommodating the needs of the members to the way that feels fit for them. And that's how it's going to be in the future. And I welcome that, because I've experienced both the physical and virtual aspects of it. So, I mean, many people would say, okay, they have this new term that's going around right now called an internet Mason. So I would say, okay, I'm somebody that was one time in a lodge. I served them for several years, perfect attendance, all that stuff. And at the end, I had nothing to show for it except snarky remarks and racism that I had to fight against. So I had to improvise. I fought against the racism. I succeeded in bringing many changes and awareness to many factors that were overlooked. But at the same time, the internet Masons, especially with the way the virtual stuff is going, that's going to be the future. You know, as many of the haters that might not like to believe that, but ultimately that's where things are going. Because I've seen both the physical aspect and gave it my all, and then at the end, it's really nothing there except ignorance. So that's why I took things in my hands with my YouTube channel. And I realized, okay, this is where things are going. And you see that too in the Masonic world right now, where everyone is kind of having their like Comic-Con type conventions. They're having their own speaker panels. They're having their own YouTube channels, their Zoom lectures, their telegrams, their podcasts. So many of the people who are of that wavelength are taking things into their own hands. And that's going to be more prominent as time goes on, because people just don't have the tolerance to deal with those that are from the ego, those that are spreading low vibrational behavior, talking down on others. So that's just not going to fly more and more as time goes on. And that's not going to be participated in, or the younger people are not going to give that energy. So that's the way I see it as time goes on. Probably by 2030s, I believe. By mid-2030s, it's going to be inevitably operating in its full core from a virtual standard. And it will be physical meetings as well, but with like-minded folks who are really about it, because by then, it's going to be my generation that's going to be in charge. And we want education and awareness in a time where we're so uncertain about our future, where even getting a degree is useless at this point. A college degree, and you get a master's degree, what is it? They give you $15 an hour. A lot of the people from older generations could have a high school diploma, and they could get married and raise a whole family with a self-sustained job. Now you could go to the supermarket, grab like 2 things, and you're already at $30. So the cost of living is higher, inflation is higher, there's a future with war, with uncertain crime, uncertain relationships, uncertain world. Who knows what's down the road? And that's why I believe that the brotherhood will always be there in its true esoteric form, not the corporatized structure that we see today, but in its true esoteric form, it will always exist. As I've covered the teachings in all races, religions, philosophies, that Masonic teachings are prevalent everywhere, and that's what makes it immortal. And those that apply these teachings to their life, there always will be a conduit of that energy and those teachings. So, and that's what I see, like for the physical organization as a whole, in order for it to keep itself as a household name by the 2030s, it's going to have no choice but to improvise to this technological future that awaits all of us. As much as many of us try to avoid it, I mean, you go to a supermarket now, let's say their POS system shuts off, which is like the sales system, and boom, the entire store is done because they can't buy anything, they can't sell anything. It's all connected to that internet, and that shuts down the entire business. So that's what's going to happen as time goes on by the mid-2030s. And I hope you were able to get something from my message. Again, I represent myself only, as I give the disclaimer in each video. I don't represent any Grand Lodge statements or opinions or any Masonic authority. I represent myself as a free man under free speech. And I encourage everyone, even those that are listening to this, if you have ideas, if you have knowledge to share, make your own channel, make your podcast. Everyone has the chance to make their own media now. You have it at your fingertips. Everything that I did, ever since 2019, I had this channel, and I'm almost at 2,000 subscribers with almost 300 videos. I have a old iPhone, so I'm using an old iPhone. I have this old laptop. That's all I have. I don't have any fancy equipment. I don't have none of that stuff. Now you have apps and everything. You can do so much if you have the drive to do so. So you don't need a fancy studio, fancy microphone, any of that stuff. If you have knowledge to share, do it. Put it out there, and it will be welcomed and received from those who are of that same wavelength. So I thank you for listening, and I hope you were able to take something away from this. Much love to all of you, and thank you.